What villain was terrifying because they were right? Story 1. The Reapers from Mass Effect. In the original BioWare ending before EA changed it, all they were trying to do was stop advanced races from using so much dark matter that they wiped out all life in the galaxy before other races were allowed to come along. If it wasn't for them, humanity wouldn't just not exist, but every species in the entire cycle, every species in every cycle, everyone would have just died as the stars went out, this horrific fast heat death event over the course of a few thousand years. Except a small group of Leviathans, in the early days of the universe, realized what was going to happen and sacrificed their entire civilization to save all future life in the galaxy. And when Shepard destroys their ships in the third one, every one of those ships is a museum, a living record of every previous civilization, and they're destroying the only thing that was able to be left from them. To fight the Reapers is to fight against everyone who ever lived and everyone who ever will live. The Reapers don't just have a point, they've saved more lives than we can even fathom. Their own flaw is that they were never able to find a solution that was better than wiping out civilization every 1,000 years and preserving whatever they could find. Story 2. None of you said the most terrifying one. MOJO JOJO from the Powerpuff Girls. He wanted to bring free energy and advanced technology to the people, and in one episode he actually did. He made the world an amazing place, and then the Powerpuff Girls ruined it all. I just read his backstory. Pretty sad. The professor accidentally created him by spilling chemical X on him. He was a lab assistant at the time. But then after the Powerpuff Girls were created, the professor eventually neglected Mojo and left him to live out on the streets. Story 3. Stevie from Wizards of Waverly Place. Her entire goal was to stop families from giving up their magic to just one person in the family. Like, we're really supposed to be rooting against her. It just seemed super out of character for Alex to go against that plan. I was thinking exactly this. Why give up your powers when everyone can have them? Only one member of the family having wizard powers seems unsustainable for the wizarding world. I get it that it's not very nice of her to trap her brother, but she was 100% right. I really thought Alex would do it. I cannot understand how or why did Alex double-cross her. Story 4. I wasn't really terrified of it, but N was in the right in my opinion when we're talking Pokemon. Dude thought getting these creatures and making them fight till one is knocked out wasn't that amazing of an idea, and it just made sense to kid me. That all said, I think N is a really interesting character that can be interpreted in many different ways. Of all the main leaders of the game, I think N had the best argument. It wasn't perfect though. I like N a lot for his character development. I agree with him at the end. Real Pokemon mistreatment should not be tolerated, but a Pokemon trainer simply using Pokemon in battles does not qualify as mistreatment as the Pokemon is happy. The Pokemon like the trainers. That is the best you should wish for there. All in all, I wish Pokemon had good stories and characters like this again, to be honest. Story 5. King Kong. Not even because he was right, he was just alive, minding his own business and blam! Taken out of his home and made to be the villain without any choice. A real good example of human nature. Story 6. Roy Batty. What was done to him and his kind was wrong, and he had righteous anger. In the book, the story is different. A lot of time is spent by Deckard contemplating what it meant to be human. At one point, he runs into a Blade Runner that is a psychopath, and after an argument demands that the Weitkampf taps be performed on him. Deckard finds out he is human, but he is a complete psychopath, and is less human than the replicants. The story ends with Deckard killing all the replicants and getting high reward, which he was using to buy a replacement animal for his wife. There is no righteous anger in the story. The opera singer replicant just gives up and lets him kill her. The final shootout with the last of the replicants is no more special or human than a pet control guy shooting some dogs that went into hiding. The story is very depressing and no one is really angry, just resigned to fate and a system that is very inhumane. Story 7. The Boss MGS3. I raised you. I loved you. I've given you weapons, taught you techniques, endowed you with knowledge. There is nothing more for me to give you. All that's left for you to take is my life by your own hand. One must die and one must live. No victory, no defeat. The survivor will carry on the fight. It is our destiny. The one who survives will inherit the title of boss, and the one who inherits the title of boss will face an existence of endless battle. Story 8. William Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Dude was right about how the perception of public figures changes over time. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero. And though they found you amusing for a time, if there's one thing people love more than a hero, it's to see a hero fall, fail, die trying. Story 9. Bobby Heenan spent the 80s telling us how awful and selfish Hulk Hogan was, proven absolutely correct in 1996. In hindsight, Heenan was trying to save us from the inevitable scourge of Hollywood Hogan. Story 10. Frankenstein's monster, Adam. Created by a short-sighted, arrogant doctor as the first of his race, then denied the opportunity to be part of a community of his own man-made beings or the human community. He only became monstrous after it became clear that Frankenstein would never create another of his kind, and was driven mad by his desire to punish Frankenstein's hubris. Story 11. The Red Hood. Batman beats insane people up. They go to Arkham, are usually experimented on there, and come back worse. In a way, I think that makes Batman one of the worst perpetrators of Gotham's constant decline into savagery. The Red Hood just straight up kills them. Story 12. Otto from Wall-E. It was one of the almost perfectly executed AI villains. He never really talks unless needed because he wasn't programmed to. No malicious motives. Does everything efficiently. He's only bad because he's following his programming. Protect the humans and don't let them go back to Earth. Not out of malicious intent, but it was what he was programmed to do, and his directive isn't even incorrect. Wall-E finding a plant was like finding a 4-leaf clover in a field of grain. The planet was nowhere near habitable, and they barely know how to stand when they get back. In reality, you know nobody on that axiom is going to make it very far. Story 13. Not a true villain, but Squidward. Damn, is SpongeBob an annoying neighbor? I'd hate him too. Squidward's a minimum wage worker in a monotonous day job with a boss who explicitly wants him to earn as little as possible and cut costs everywhere, while having a musician's heart and playing his passion instrument to have some happiness and relaxing time for himself. He then proceeds to have his only time of peace and tranquility stolen from him by a loud, inconvenient neighbor who doesn't take care of his shit and makes fun of him for not being a pro at music. Most SpongeBob episodes I watch nowadays have me rooting for Squidward to just murder the two morons before they induce a depression breakdown on our Squid Boy. Story 14. For all that it mattered, save for a literal deus ex machina, Mass Effect Sovereign was right. You exist because we allow it, and you will end because we demand it. There was no stopping the Reapers, none, not one iota of legitimate hope. Sovereign laid out it was like the facts it was, without ego, pride, or delusion, and you knew he was right, too. Story 15. For all my theater nerds, besides AIDS, Benny was the villain of the musical Rent. But was he the villain? He's a gray character for sure, but I don't think he's such a bastard. He rents out a massive apartment in New York City to his friends who have no income or credit, probably. Offers them to invest in a studio to make films and write songs, pays for rehab for Mimi, and pays for the funeral for someone who literally murdered his dog. Sounds to me like a man trying to help his friends get their shit together and grow up. I'll admit he's a bit of a dick for cheating on his wife Gentrification, and says some not so great things to Mimi, but the villain, no way. What's really scary about it is that Benny wins, so to speak. New York is pretty much exactly what he wanted and planned. Story 16. The Matrix Agent Smith. I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with their surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to another area, and you multiply until every natural resource is consumed. The only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. Story 17. Evelyn, screenslaver, from Incredibles 2. She said superheroes keep people weak and are the reason for her parents' deaths, which is technically true. If you rely on someone else to keep you safe, you will never learn how to keep yourself safe, and if something happens to them, what will you do? Story 18. Dr. Zaius from the Planet of the Apes. The entire original series does a really good job, in my opinion, of making the villains right, but also the harbingers of their own downfall. But Dr. Zaius is my personal favorite. Dr. Zaius in Beneath the Planet of the Apes has his line which sums up his ideology to a T. Paraphrasing, as it's been a hot minute. Help you. Why should I help you? Man is evil, capable of nothing but destruction. And the best part is, while yes, by refusing to help George, he leads to the world being destroyed, he was never wrong. The end of the first movie has George learn that mankind caused a nuclear apocalypse while he was out in space, leaving the other apes to evolve in more or less a wasteland. And the second movie ends with George activating nukes underground in a last-ditch Hail Mary and blowing Earth up. While yes, it could have been avoided if Zeus just helped George, why should he have? Everything from both the apes' religious beliefs and their knowledge of history shows mankind to be evil, destructive species. And while yes, we're also doing good, let's be honest, it's always been our destructive efforts that have led more lasting impacts on the world. And the last thing Dr. Zeus experienced was just confirmation of his belief as a human destroyed not only himself, not only Dr. Zeus, but literally the entire planet. Story 19. Poison Ivy is an environmentalist at heart, and Raj Al Ghul is a humanitarian. Both were pushed into extremism after the broken system they're trying to fix simply refused to change for so long that they decided the system itself needed to be torn down. Story 20. Evil Morty from Rick and Morty. He just wanted to get away and be free from Rick's constant abuse. Granted, he took innocent lives to achieve his goal, and was wrong when he said, "If there's one truth in the universe, it's that Ricks don't care about Mortys." C-137, both Doofus Ricks, Wasp Ricks, are all exceptions. He was right about it being a constant cycle of abuse, because most Ricks do abuse their Mortys. He got sick of it. He just wanted an escape. Story 21. Jared Butler's charter in Law-Abiding Citizen. The dude makes you root for him, even when he's killing mostly innocent people. Kinda makes you wonder what's wrong with yourself. Story 22. Ishmael from the Wheel of Time books. Basically, time repeats itself, and there's a guy who's trying to stop time from repeating itself. Ishmael reasons that it is statistically impossible for the good guys to beat him every time, so the only way to win is to side with them. He's literally just right. Story 23. Roger the Shrink from Friends. He saw the group for what they were almost immediately, and when he called them out on it, instead of saying, "You know what, he's right, we should work on ourselves and not spend the next decade bouncing from one failed relationship to the next," they badmouth him behind his back and throw cookies at him after he leaves the room. He was the hero they needed, but didn't deserve. Story 24. Dr. Breen from Half-Life 2. I'm honestly surprised he's not a more popular answer here. He was right. Humanity can't win against the Combine. They hold all the cards, and only by bending to every single one of their demands will humans not break. At least in his mind, he doesn't know about the G-Man. If it takes oppression of his own people, the removal of the ability to breed, the removal of free will, the terraforming of their dimension, and total subjugation into a large, uncaring empire to save humanity, then so be it. Without Gordon and the G-Man's help, the rebels are only aggravating the Combine and making humans seem more of a liability to be purged than an asset to be integrated. The Combine forced the total surrender of the planet Earth in the span of 7 hours. You can't win. They've already won. Story 25. Malware from Ben 10 Omniverse. Sure, he might have been a psychopath, but all he wanted was to be seen and get fixed by his creator, so he can be like the rest of his kind, and his creator literally did nothing to help him. Story 26. Bane in Dark Knight Rises knew the banks were the problem. This is a stock exchange. There's no money you can steal. Really? Then why are you people here? The film was from 2012. The 2008 financial crisis was still a fresh memory. It hit way more in the feels back then. Edit. But it doesn't mean it isn't today. There has been a rise in things like crypto and trading apps. I've seen many people losing a lot of money and they still think that they will get a deal that makes them rich. Stock markets got a lot more accessible. Story 27. I'm surprised that I haven't seen Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. The dude just wanted to resolve normal, common day problems like people who can't decide what they want to order, stopping the queue. We've all thought the way he thinks, but only he has the will, intellect, and resources to actually try it. Story 28. Sarah Marshall was Peter's villain. That would be terrifying to me. Losing someone you love because you've just lost your way. You misplaced what made you, you. Cheating isn't acceptable, and no amount of whataboutism could ever make it right. She should have split with him a long time before. They were both damaged people. The movies like to show her as the villain, but at that time, Peter was his own villain really. He grew through the process and came out better in the end. She didn't show the same emotional growth, but that doesn't mean she wasn't right in the beginning. Story 29. Well, technically not a villain, but Elliot from Mr. Robot. His views on society were spot on, besides the blatant nihilism. Fuck yeah, Sam Esmail is an incredible writer. Elliot and Mr. Robot, don't want to spoil anything for anyone, are so fucking smart and profound. The rant that Mr. Robot goes on in Times Square about how society is anything but a reality these days. And a line Elliot has about how humans rely on each other's mistakes to relate to one another. What a show. Story 30. Megatron as portrayed in the IDW 1.0 series. Literally no one here is going to understand, and pretty much all of you are going to read Megatron and think, robots fighting. No. I implore you to read more into his character in that entire series. He was fucked from the heinous shit he was doing, but everything he ever said was right, and he just became politically stronger and stronger. Story 31. The aliens from Aliens 2. Dudes living in a planet that had eggs before humans arrived. And when the greedy corp adds humans to secretly test the aliens' strength, now they are a menace and a group of exterminators is sent to kill them. Sounds like typical colonialism to me. Story 32. Joker from The Dark Knight. Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be, to them you're just a freak, like me. They need to know, but when they don't, they'll cast you out like a leper. You see, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke, dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve. Story 33. Gaston. To the best of this town's knowledge, Belle has been kidnapped by a horrible monster known to be plaguing the neighboring area. He immediately volunteers to save her and through sheer will of leadership, raises an army out of simple farmers and shopkeepers. Unfortunately, in efforts to save the girl, he perished, but not before slaying the monster to save the day. It was through his sacrifice that the curse was lifted and everyone was able to live happily ever after. Story 34. The Asians in FF14. They weren't trying to wipe out humanity for nothing. They were literally trying to save their civilization from the brink of extinction. Imagine you were the last human on Earth and you knew you could bring everyone back providing you wiped out a lesser, more annoying species, like the mosquito, for instance. It'd be a no-brainer. If the Asians succeeded in their plan, they would have been hailed as heroes for saving the world. Story 35. I guess he was more interesting than right, but Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho. Former spirit detective whose sense of right and wrong was too binary. Humans equals good, demons equals bad. Then one day he ran into a death orgy where humans gathered to torture demons and bathe in blood for pleasure. It messed him up really bad, and the nail in the coffin was the tape he stole that archived all of humanity's worst crimes. He no longer thought humans deserved to be protected, and ended up opening a portal and breaking the barrier between the human and demon world. I really did feel for him and understood where he was coming from, but he did end up taking the nuclear route to right the wrongs. Story 36. Cypher from the Matrix. Also the machines from the Matrix. Machines. There's no sunlight and no real food as a result of the catastrophic war between us. We could just all die, or we could put all of you guys in a simulated version of Earth where you experience sensations that are indistinguishable from reality, and will survive off the byproduct energy your body produces. Humans. Nah, gruel and freedom from oppression. Fuck the sunlight. We'll live as mole people. Here's a fun question. How does anyone in the cast of The Matrix know they aren't still living in a simulated reality outside of The Matrix?